welcome to the podcast version of my podcast, eSTEAMd Women, where we get to hear stories and experiences of incredible women from diverse backgrounds and perspectives in science and technology. Conversations in this series give us a real insight into some fascinating innovations, but we also get to find out how successful women in STEM thrive in male-dominated professions. Here on eSTEAMd Women, I give my guests a platform to be seen and heard, and honestly, every single episode is inspiring and uplifting because we hear about what they've learned along their life's journeys, both personally and professionally. This week, I talked to Dr. Gardner, a combustion experimentalist.
I'm Dr. Gardner. I'm a combustion experimentalist, so I like to play with fire. I work for Rolls-Royce as a combustion aerothermal technologist, and I'm also the holder of a Royal Academy of Engineering Industrial Fellowship, which means that I get to pursue a bit more research-led work at the National Centre for Combustion and Aerothermal Technologies at Loughborough University at the moment.
AKA total badass. I mean, honestly, it's like so amazing to hear just, all those things. I feel like we need to break it down a little bit because it's a lot of very long words all stuck together. So where should we even start?
I started doing a physics degree. So I started out, I left school, was born and bred in Grimsby, so I'm a girl from Grimsby, and I moved over to Aberystwyth to study planetary space physics, actually, because space is very exciting, and the sun and everything like that. And it was during my second year that I thought, actually, I quite like to stay in Aberystwyth for a little bit over the summertime. So I was looking for jobs. And there were a few around in the department. One of the older students said, "Oh, see if you can get a research position. That's a good thing to do, and helps you if you want to do further study." And I'm like, okay. So I asked around, and there was some data crunching stuff which was unpaid, and I thought, I could do that. And then this chap came to see me in the laboratory where I was working on my second year project. He said, "Do you want to come and blow some stuff up?" I'm like, yeah, that will do. And he said, "Will I pay you?" I'm like, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. So I started off in that summertime working with shock tubes, looking at ignition delay times. So when you heat a gas mixture and pressurize a gas mixture, which is flammable, it can spontaneously combust. So I started out doing shock tube experiments and taking pictures of flames as they ignited. And there's actually the precursor to my PhD then. So that's sort of where it all started, and how I managed to get into this wonderful world of combustion is, taking pictures of explosions, basically. And doing some larger ones as well with the group that I was in. They're explosion specialists. They still are. Going into the forest and blowing up water tanks for safety information and doing flame arrestor testing. I did a little bit of that, not as much as I probably would have liked to, but it was really interesting stuff.
So what was your PhD in then?
So my PhD ended up in auto-ignition delay times, so looking at natural gas mixtures at low temperatures, heated and pressurised, and see when they would spontaneously combust. And then comparing that to a chemical kinetics model where it predicts what should happen, what time it takes for this ignition to happen. And what we found was that actually at the lower temperatures, it happens a lot quicker than you'd expect, which isn't great if you're looking at premixed combustion systems in ground-based gas turbines, for example, because it means that you can have a problem with auto-ignition in a place and combustion where you don't want combustion, not necessarily in the combustion chamber. And then I also did a project on soot formation, actually, as well, where I ended up working in a synchrotron, which is where X-rays are produced. It's a huge torus, actually. You need a bicycle to get around it. And you work ridiculous hours, 20 hours a day, and you get like 4 hours sleep, and you have to go back to the cell and do more experiments. But we were firing these X-rays through an ethylene flame and looking to see where, because when you fire the X-rays through, it scatters off the particles, and from the scatter data you can work out what size the particles are and how they grow throughout the flame. So I did a bit of that as well. I've done quite a varied amount of things, actually, a bit of a jack of all trades, but learnt a lot along the way.
Imagining you going to your day job and like every day is about blowing something up.
Yeah, well, it was for a while. Now we like to keep the combustion nice and controlled. We don't want any explosions with what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah.
What are you doing at the moment?
So at the moment, for the last 12 years, after I did a couple of postdocs, I've been working in what we call kerosene land for Rolls-Royce, looking at combustion systems for jet engines, so the kind of jet engines that will take you on your holidays. And so I worked a lot of project stuff. I did the certification for emissions for the Trent XWB, which is our most efficient engine in the world. And now what I'm looking at is miniaturization of fuel spray nozzles. Not too small. I mean, you can still see them. When I say micro mixers, a lot of people think, "Ooh, micron size." I'm like, no, they're this big. But more numerous fuel spray nozzles in the combustor to try and control that combustion process even better than we do at the moment, to reduce our emissions of pollutants, and also to give us a nice even temperature distribution for our downstream components, which do take a bit of a battering. The exit temperature of the combustor is about 2000 Kelvin, 2400 Kelvin. So it's really very, very hot. And our colleagues and turbines have to work very hard to make sure that their components can cope with that by lots of cooling and things like that. And if we have big temperature gradients, it makes it more difficult for them. So if we can have a nice even temperature distribution, then it means that their components are going to last longer, which is great in terms of sustainability as well.
What are you like on a plane?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the seats are always too small, but but yeah, it's fine. I don't mind. I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy about it.
New Zealand Airways have giant seats.
Yes, I saw they've got these ones where you can lay down as well, and I have a small obsession with aircraft interiors and how to make economy, a much more wonderful experience, because I think sometimes it can be a little bit of a letdown. I've managed to fly business once or twice, and that is the way to travel. We got off the plane coming back from New York, and I went and had a shower in my own private bathroom. It was great. Had a facial. It was fantastic. And that is the way to deplane, in my opinion. But yeah, unfortunately, most of the time I'm in economy.
I'm not going to ask you which airline because I don't want to plug anything, but
not going to say.
Are you one of those flyers then that just enjoys it? Because for me, ever since I did mechanical engineering, honestly, I'm just like, I can't stop thinking about things that I learn, how does this thing stay up? I mean, I know the mathematical equations allow it, but I'm still a paranoid flyer.
Yeah, you see, I'm not. I think that I had an experience once on a flight where we did take off and we had to land pretty quickly. My palms were definitely sweaty then. But since then, I don't know. I find it, you're in your own little space, your own little cocoon. You can watch whatever movies you want, and they bring you a glass of wine. It's great.
What's not to love?
Absolutely. Yes, in some ways I'm a bit sad I haven't managed to travel over the last few years, obviously with the pandemic and everything. But maybe in the future. I'm still not entirely sold on 24 hours on a plane to go to Australia or New Zealand, but maybe in the future, if we can get those some of the new fancy concepts for aircraft interiors, that would be the way to do it.
Is it actually possible to go from A to B in 24 hours? I thought you have to.
Yes, no. The project Sunrise has just been completed, I think, and you can actually fly direct now.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a long way.
that's a lot of fuel on board.
It is a lot of fuel on board. Absolutely.
So, I mean, with what you do, it just sounds so incredible, and I can really hear your passion and your enthusiasm, but it's not an obvious choice for a woman.
No, It's
So
not, and
exactly.
I am a bit of a woman in a man's world.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about that. You know, I think every time I'm in a meeting, I do a quick tally, and I think, you know, in my group in particular, it's about 10%.
It doesn't take long to tally.
It doesn't. There's about 5 of us, which is, it's not ideal, to be honest, because, you know, diversity in every shape and form, I think, makes better teams. You know, it allows us to create new ideas and innovate better, and be able to, you know, bounce ideas and get to new concepts, because everybody comes with a different point of view or a different way of doing things. And, you know, sometimes when you've got a lot of, you know, men of a certain age, engineers in a room, it can go down one route, because you've all been trained in the same way, you've all had the same experiences. Whereas if you've got a lot of people from a lot of different places, a lot of different backgrounds, you can get a little bit more creative, I think. But yeah, I wanted to be a physicist. That's what I wanted to do. I thought, I'm going to go and do physics, you know. And there was a lot of people that said, oh, it's hard, that is. And I'm like, well, yeah, it is, but I want to learn about the way this world works. I want to learn about how things go together. And, you know, I'm a physicist that masquerades as an engineer, in her day-to-day life working at Rolls-Royce. But I just love the discovery stages, you know. Sometimes the little wins come few and far between, but when you get them, it's really exciting when you've put that experiment together and it goes well, and you can get the data and you're looking at it and you see something new. You're like, oh, this is exciting. I like this. I always say that we have different stages of testing. So you've got your very small scale sort of lab experiments, bench experiments. But we also do, you know, very representative testing at Rolls-Royce, where we've got a full annular combustor. So our combustors are like a torus, like a donut. And we take those to a facility, and we run them at pretty much engine representative conditions, except perhaps the pressure. And when you've done one of those tests, I always say, I walk away from that feeling like I've just landed from the moon. When it's gone well, when you've got the data, when you know that you can answer the question that the program has asked you, you feel a real buzz. It is a real buzz. I love it.
Wow. I mean, the first time we met was at Cambridge, the Whittle lab. And I'm, you know, trying to imagine what it must be like running those tests. Because, I mean, the equipment and the laboratory is just so impressive, you know, and everything's so big, you know, big scale, and it must be, I can understand why that would be really thrilling.
Yeah. And I think as well is that when you go from the Whittle lab stage to our full annular rig test stage, and then you get to do engine tests. And I think one of the things that really struck me when I first started at Rolls-Royce, I went to do an engine test, and I went into the test cell and I looked up, and there was just an engine hanging there on the pylon above me, and I just couldn't stop grinning. And I get to do things with that. I personally don't get to do the throttle, unfortunately, but I get to say, can you please go to this condition, and can you please get this data for me? And then the data can come in, and we sometimes, you know, with the certification test, we'll have witnesses from the European Aviation Safety Authority, and they'll come in, and you're talking to them and making sure that they're happy with the processes you've done. And it's a real, you know, it's a real achievement when you've done that.
I mean, putting gender aside, are there many people that do your job?
Well, there's quite a few in the team. I mean, we are split between sort of experimental side of things and sort of the method. So computational fluid dynamics and heat transfer modeling and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess there'll be some people in other companies as well that do what I do. So in the GEs and the Pratt & Whitneys and those kind of places. So I wouldn't say we're a large group. The combustion community itself is, you know, we tend to know each other. But I also work on the Institute of Physics Combustion Physics group. I did that for a long time before I started at Rolls-Royce, and because I've got this award from the Royal Academy of Engineering, it allows me to actually get back into the combustion community again. And it's really nice because I get to go back and I go, oh, hello, I haven't seen you for a while. Because it's all the same people, and being able to chat to them about what they're working on now as well, and get an insight into what they're doing. I recently organised a meeting for hydrogen combustion, because obviously that's one of the big things at the moment.
Yeah.
And we held it at Rolls-Royce, and 80 odd people came, but it was really nice to get like academics and industrial partners and see what everybody's doing. Everybody presented on what they're trying to achieve, and some of the things were very, high level. We're going to make this plant and we're going to produce hydrogen and we're going to burn it in this way. And others were, I've got a 2 millimeter channel where I'm looking at the model of how hydrogen combusts in there, and so really down to the very academic scale as well. So a huge broad range of things, but it was just really great to see everybody back together again, because it's something again that we've not had with the pandemic. We've not been able to come together. We've not been able to chat about, oh, I really like your talk, and I really liked seeing what you're doing, and I'm doing this, and what about if we collaborate, and things like that. And that's the essence of engineering and pushing forward in science, is getting those collaborations going. So it's been really exciting to get back into the combustion community and see my old mates.
Yeah, and are you all kind of accepting of the fact that fuel's going to change in aviation?
I think so, yeah. I mean, there's 2 different routes at the minute that are, well, perhaps 3 actually. So we've got battery technology, we've got hydrogen, and we've got sustainable aviation fuels, SAFs, or synthetic aviation fuels. And they've got, I think, different applications. You're not gonna get on a battery powered plane to go to Australia, but you might be able to go to Glasgow. But also with hydrogen, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to figure out what's the most appropriate application for it, and perhaps it's the middle kind of length of travel, and then maybe for the longer length of travel we use something like a SAF, so that it can be a bit more kerosene-like, and we can fill up and go and travel for the 16, 17 hours or whatever. But yeah, I think that it's definitely recognised that hydrogen is now something that we all need to be looking into a bit more. And what got me from the hydrogen meeting is that we're looking at the basics as well as looking at how we can actually implement it all at the same time. So there's a lot of work going on in very different streams, and that goes for storage, transportation as well. So there's loads of different things going to really push this concept through to something that we can be confident that we can use in our day-to-day lives. Because let's face it, combustion is in our day-to-day lives. My gas boiler goes off, I don't worry. I don't think my house is going to blow up. I get in my car, it's got an internal combustion engine in it. I don't think that's going to blow up. I'm quite happy with that. But with hydrogen, there's a bit of nervousness probably, because it's a new type of fuel. It's a bit more reactive, but the work is being done now to be able to implement it in a very safe way.
I just had a thought when you were saying that of your boiler going, because when the boiler goes in my place, I kind of want to outsmart the guy that comes to fix it. And I can't imagine what it must be like if you're around.
Oh, I let him get on with it. Oh yeah, no, they don't want me around.
Like, no, you haven't got the ratios right. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, being a woman in a man's world, honestly, when I work in Rolls-Royce, but sometimes it's outside of Rolls-Royce that I really feel it. I came home once and there was some scaffolders putting up scaffolding because we were getting some of the guttering done, and they said, "Oh, where you been, love? Shopping?" I'm thinking, no, I've just got out of a chief engineer's review actually. But it is changing. It is changing. I'm working with so many vibrant young people at the moment at the National Centre for Combustion and Aerothermal Technology, which we do shorten to NCAT. We don't always say the whole thing. So there's loads of PhD students there who are all probably under the age of 30, and they just treat me like a person. I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm just a person who's got experience that they can tap into if they want to. They always joke that I'm an inspiration, but actually I think they're pretty inspirational themselves. They've got that energy, they've got the drive, they've got the passion for what they want to do, and you know, they're pushing forward. And it's really lovely to be in that environment and seeing these early career researchers and engineers being, you know, properly excited by combustion. And I think part of that is this, you know, the change in fuels, the idea that we don't have to work with fossil fuels all the time. We could make our own fuels. We could, you know, look at something alternative, and that gives them, you know, the impetus to go and search out the basics, but then also look into how it could be implemented.
Oh, I really want to hold that thought. This idea that the sort of younger generations, I know it makes us sound old.
Oh, we're not that old. We're not.
Well, maybe not you, but I've got to a place where I am accepting now that I am a different generation. But it's interesting because the younger generation coming through do come with a different mindset. And it's really great to hear you being inspired by that, because there is absolutely no doubt that you must be such a major guide and mentor and light for that crowd. But I can also see how you're learning from them, because you said something earlier about how you know, there's a very homogenous group that you work with. And you said that if you leave things up to that homogenous group, then you don't get the diversity and you don't get the inclusive ideas and, you know, all those different perspectives. And what I was really wanting to ask you in that moment is, how have you coped with making yourself heard when you are the minority? Like, do you have like a cheat sheet of how to get your voice through?
Do you know, I'm still working on it. Definitely still working on it. But I also don't think that it's necessarily just because I'm a woman either. I think it's a matter of personalities as well. I mean, you could probably tell I'm quite a sociable person. And we do this thing in Rolls-Royce called high performance culture, where you put yourself into a different box and you say what your standard personality is, understanding that we can all move and flex and change if we need to. But there's a lot of my colleagues are in the formal and dominant or the analyst category, whereas I'm very much more a supporter. I like to see people succeed. I want to share knowledge. I want to do that. And not to say these guys won't do that, but it's just that's my natural state, is to be in a team dynamic, and you know, not necessarily working in isolation, because I'm a bit of an extrovert, I suppose. But it's, you know, it's those kind of people who also get the same treatment as me. I remember we did it was another training exercise where we were looking at microaggressions, and people were asked whether or not they'd said an idea in a meeting and whether it had been ignored. And it wasn't just me that put my hand up. A lot of my colleagues did as well. And so I think it comes down to your personality, it comes down to your level of experience as well. I think I have to be quite careful sometimes that, you know, not necessarily playing the woman card, but I think a lot of that kind of behavior comes from, I trust this person and I don't know this person, or I trust this person and they've done something like that before that I know about. Maybe they don't know that I've done that before as well. So I've got to be, you know, a little bit tolerant of that, because I was surprised when everybody put their hand up. I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I thought that was because I was a woman in a man's world. But when, you know, half my colleagues are putting their hands up and they're blokes, it's like, oh, actually, maybe it is, you know, half a dozen of one and six of the other sort of thing. But yeah, I think getting my voice heard is, something I'm definitely still working on. I think it's simple to do when you've got the backup that you need. as well. So if you've got an ally who is a senior manager or something like that that can, you know, nod along with you, that's great.
Just experience.
Say again?
Even just experience.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of experience, but sometimes, you know, if I'm saying something about something that I have a great deal of knowledge about, I can still be faced with, yeah, but Kat, it's like this. And I'm like, I know, I've lived it. So, yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is don't get angry because it doesn't help anybody. I've been there. I've got a little angry. And all it does is make me feel a bit upset and make you look a little bit less professional than you want to be. So, yeah, it's a really hard question, Shinny. How do I get my voice heard? I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. You got any tips?
You know, it's interesting that someone like you is working on it, to be honest with you, because I'm just like, you know, you seem like such a outgoing character, you know, you are oozing confidence, you've got loads of experience, you're really highly qualified, you know, amazing job, like all these things going for you. Why wouldn't you just kind of strut into a room and be heard and everyone turns their head? But so it's kind of like oddly reassuring that you say you're working on it, because one, I never would have thought that there is work to do for you on that.
Oh, loads. Yeah.
And then two, it's like, okay, well, if she's working on it, then, you know, that kind of gives me permission to be working on that for myself, because it can be really annoying when someone goes, why would you feel like you're not heard or seen? Like, look at you, listen to you. And it's like, no, I still have to work on that. And it's really, sorry, you've like completely knocked me at this idea that other people who are in that sort of homogenous group that tends to be engineering may also be feeling the same way.
Yeah, it did shock me as well.
Yeah.
And it was comforting as well to know that, you know, something that I'd probably internalized as they don't listen to me because I'm a woman is actually happening to my other colleagues with the same amount of experience. And we had a big discussion about it as well. And it was a case of, well, you know, because there was an example we were working around. Well, maybe that person only just joined the group. Maybe, you know, that nobody realizes their experience. Nobody quite trusts them yet, or, you know, can see them delivering what they're suggesting. And it was, yeah, it was really interesting to see that from people who had just joined Rolls-Royce, as well as people who had been there longer than I have as well. I mean, you know, it's not like we're getting shouted at in meetings or anything like that, but something where you're not listened to can be disheartening. It can be, you know, upsetting in some ways because you don't feel valued and you don't feel included. And I think, you know, it's a problem not just in engineering. It probably happens all over, where, you know, we've got to get something done. You know, you're in a dynamic team, and, you know, we need ideas, and suddenly you say something, but it is not quite taken on board. But then somebody senior to you says it, and everybody's applauding and going, "Oh, that's brilliant!" And you go in, "Well, I said that. I think I did in one meeting say, I think I said that 30 minutes ago," but
and what happened?
Again, nothing. Obviously, nothing. Which is why I say, you know, don't get angry about it, because all that does is hurt you. Just okay, that's fine. Get on with my job. Do the things that I'm good at. Concentrate on growing myself, and try a different approach next time. Although, you know, you do get to the point where there are so many approaches you can take.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like at the moment there's a big discussion in the UK about well, sort of like the conflict between the royal family and what's being said on the other side of that. You know, and there's, you know, racism coming up, and the empowerment of women coming up, and all those kinds of issues. And I definitely don't want to get into that here, but like, it is really interesting because I feel like there are parallels between that going on in the world and being respected in an industry like engineering, because it's so much about our own experience of what's going on. What actually is going on almost feels like that's an aside. You know, I have a conversation once a week with a woman in STEM, and time again it always goes back to our own interpretation. And what's brilliant about that is that we're in control of our own interpretation. And I feel like you've said that. And so I kind of want to break it down. Like, what does that actually mean? Because I really am fighting for like equality and diversity and inclusion in engineering. But what if it's down to our own interpretation, you know? So with that said, like, what can we do to be in a more equal, diverse and inclusive industry? Like, what can we do as individuals to encourage that?
I think you've got to be yourself. I think you've got to. I for a long time have been told, you're too nice, you're too friendly, you're too helpful. And I'm like, okay, you know, you're not fitting within the mold. You know, you're not being an engineer as I understand it. I've also been sat down and told I'm very young to be in the position that I'm in. The person thought I was about 8 years younger than I actually was. And I'm like, no, I'm not having that. Not when it's made as a derogatory remark. You're very young. No, I've got plenty of experience. Thank you very much. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
So, yeah, not fitting the mold.
Yeah, so I don't fit. I don't fit in the standard engineer mold. And to be honest, I tried for a long time to really fit into that and do things as I was told to, and be that person who was, you know, more reserved and not quite as loud or boisterous as my natural personality is. And then I got to a stage where I was trying to work on a project that wasn't working out as I hoped, and I tried many different ways of doing things. I was the friendly cat. I was the professional cat. I was the angry cat. I was, you know, the forceful cat, and none of it worked out. And I ended up burning out actually, and taking some time off work because of it. And so from that, I've done a lot of therapy, and a lot of that has really shaped the way that I view myself now. And I am more me than I have been in a very long time. Which is probably why you're thinking, oh, she seems confident, she seems, you know, all this experience. But yeah, I do have that. But for a long time, I probably didn't shout about it. I didn't say I am this person who has this and is capable and, you know, is dependable. I just thought, get on with the job, cat. That'll show them. And I don't think it does either. I really don't. You know, you won't be recognised unless you really shout about it, because that's what all these boys are doing. They're shouting about it. They're going for the promotions. They're going and getting what they want. And I think, you know, from our perspective as a woman in engineering, we need to do that a bit more.
Yeah.
We need to interpret the way that we are, what we can offer, what we are delivering. Write that down and say, no, I want more. Thank you very much. I deserve more. Because nobody's going to blow your trumpet. You have to blow it yourself. Yeah. And a lot of that self-reflection that I did, you know, during that time where I wasn't particularly well is really helped me to become this person that you're talking to today. But not just that, working in the NCAT has really helped me to become this person you're talking to today, because they do treat me a little bit differently to the way I have been treated in the past. I am feeling a lot more valued and a lot more respected. And that's not, that's not to say that it's awful at Rolls-Royce. It's not, but it is different. And there are different ways to do it. And there are different pressures as well. When you've got a customer like Airbus, you need to deliver, and you need to, make sure that you're doing the best high quality work. And that is stressful. I mean, I loved it when I was in Project Land. It's fast paced. It's, you've got to get this done. You've got to go to the chief engineer's review, and you've got to tell him what you're doing about this problem or this solution to optimization. And it's really good fun. But it is different in the world that I work in at the moment, where, I'm in R&T. It's a little more relaxed. But also, the people I'm working with I feel a little bit more valued as well when I can go into the PhD office, and part of my fellowship is to give the industrial perspective to these early career researchers. And so I really enjoy saying, oh yeah, but in Rolls-Royce, we do it like this. And they're like, oh, right, well, that's a bit different to the way I would think about doing it, because obviously in an academic environment, you're looking at things to the nth degree. Your precision is probably 10 times more than we would probably strive for, because we've got to get the job done and we've got to get that product out as well. So it's different environments. But yeah, it's been a journey to get to this person that you're talking to today, and I'm just determined now that, as I say, I'm working on things still. I'm determined to maintain this now and not be pushed into that mold anymore, because I don't think it was really healthy for me.
It's interesting to hear that difference between industry and academia, because kind of what was ringing in my head is this thing that I've heard quite often, which is don't take it personally. Yeah. But yes, like it's a balance. Don't take things personally, because often it isn't personal, but at the same time, it can be personal in the sense that in industry, they've got one goal, which is to meet commercial expectations, whereas in academia, there's a different focus. And so you have to adjust yourself personally in order to fit. So it is kind of personal. But the change that you talk about is so interesting, because I feel like I've also experienced similar changes, or maybe put another way, it's like a maturing.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, I just felt so overwhelmed with data, information, where you're trying to figure out how you fit in the world or the industry, and the maturing process that you've been through, I relate to, because at some point I was like, I've got to be not less emotional, but I need to understand how I fit into the jigsaw of everything.
Yeah. I think it is almost a little, and this sounds awful, but a little less care, don't care so much about what this person thinks, or okay, fine, you must be having a bad day, if they say something, because you're right, it's not personal what's said, or maybe it's a remark about perhaps a piece of work that you've done. You've worked hard on that. It's got any kind of off the cuff, oh well, that was just a bit rubbish or whatever, that is going to be personal, obviously. But again, when the environment I'm in now, I get the, oh, thanks for that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, not that you don't get thanked at Rolls-Royce, because you do, but that feels personal as well, and that feels personal in a good way. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? But at the end of the day, you've got to say to yourself, well, I know I've worked hard on that, and I know that's good enough. And if you can't see it, that's your problem almost. Which is, I guess when they were told me I'm too kind, I'm too friendly, I'm too helpful, maybe that's what they were trying to say is, just don't take it too personally. But I like a personal relationship with people. I think it helps to get things done. I think it helps to make the work life a bit nicer. But I have to recognise that a lot of my colleagues don't necessarily want that. They might want to come to work, do the job, go home, done, dusted, and not necessarily have that chat about their family or anything like that. There was a bit of an initiative to try and create that kind of environment not so long ago, and I just couldn't understand it, because let people be who they are. I think that's the thing. Don't try and force me into that mold of typical engineer, and don't try and force typical engineer into supportive, friendly, how's it going kind of person, if that's not who they are. We've just got to all say to ourselves, I'm going to be me. I'm not going to be this other person that you expect me to be. I can be a professional, but also, have a laugh and a joke. I don't see what the difference is. I don't see the problem with that. And I think sometimes it makes life a little lighter.
I do see women changing in that way. I've seen over the decades, embarrassingly, I've seen women go from, I've got to fit myself into this job description or this personality type in order to succeed, to women now just saying, this is me.
Not doing it anymore, not having it. And I think that's good. I do. I think that, we should be, one of the things, and another initiative we've had is bring your authentic self to work, and that means if you're of a certain religion, if you're, in the LGBTQ plus community, if you're, a woman, a man or whatever, bring your authentic self to work. Well, I am going to do that now. This is my authentic self, and I'm not going to conform to this ideal, sort of engineer. I'm going to be who I am, and luckily I'm in an environment where I'm helped to do that as well, and it's really refreshing and really nice.
Yeah, I now really see the importance of just showing up as yourself, and it's like such a obvious but massive revelation for me, because I spent so long trying to be something I'm not, and apologizing because I wasn't the stereotypical engineer, feeling really rubbish because I wasn't the typical engineer, and now I see women kind of like loudly and proudly being themselves, wearing high heels to the office or whatever, and looking feminine in their very male dominated industries, and the confidence to just come out with that is what allows it to be. And that's what's changing things. Women allowing themselves to be themselves is allowing women to be themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, from my perspective, I mean, I generally don't look like this when I go to work. I just have a pair of joggers on a t-shirt, because usually I'm in a rig. Also, I'm quite lazy. But that thing of watching women strut into a room, as you say, you got your heels on, you got your war paint on, let's do this, let's have it. And no, I'm not going to apologize for being a different person to you. I'm going to embrace who I am, and I'm going to be who I am. I think that's fantastic. I think one of the things I went to when we were in Cambridge, they were talking about being concerned when you have to walk into a room full of men. I think my armor is just not probably wearing the high heels and not putting the war paint on, but just being unapologetically me, and just walking in. And I'm quite happy to go into a room of men and say what I need to say. Whether or not it gets listened to is a different matter. But if you feel like you need to do your hair, to stick some makeup on, and wear a killer dress, do it. Do whatever makes you feel good. Do it for yourself, not for anybody else. Do it for yourself.
I think if I was 20 years younger listening to that, I think my armor would be that I need to know everything in order to walk into a room full of guys and feel like I can, you know, own the space that I'm taking. But actually, I've also, along my journey, met sort of people that are rising through the ranks. And what I've always found really refreshing are those individuals who are just really honest about what they don't know. So rather than like really trying to like know everything, and, you know, I've often had young girls say to me, I know the answer, but I'm really scared to put my hand up and say it just in case I get it wrong. And then I've heard like really confident girls saying, oh God, if I get it wrong, it's fine.
Yeah, see, I'm more of the if I get it wrong and I don't know everything kind of tribe. But it is quite funny because sometimes, I mean, obviously with my level of experience, I've seen the younger generation of engineers coming through that won't put their hands up, and sometimes it's not just girls, it's the boys as well. So I'm the person in the meeting that will ask the question, which is probably quite, you know, a basic one to try and, you know, get the floor moving, make sure that everybody's comfortable. And, you know, if I can ask a basic question, then you can ask a basic question. But honestly, sometimes I've had people literally scoff with the questions that I've asked, and I'm like, you don't know what I'm doing, darling. I'm trying to be inclusive here. I'm putting my question, which is a simple question that probably 5 or 6 people here would like to know, because, you know, the speaker hadn't necessarily explained it that well, but I know what the answer is anyway. And then I get scoffed at, and I'm like, don't like that. That's not team player.
I have to say that is what I struggle with today.
Yeah.
Is being in a room full of people that have giant egos.
Oh, it's always a nightmare.
To prove something, and I'm just like, why are you putting me down right now when I'm trying to be inclusive and you're trying to show off that you're really smart? Like, let's not do this.
Exactly. You know. I mean, you know, we all work for one of the best engineering companies in the world. Most of us here have got PhDs. You know, there's no competition here. I am not your competition. I've got 20 years on you, mate. You're not my competition. And yet they feel the need to, you know, make it known to the rest of the group that they thought what you said was, you know, probably you know, a bit lowbrow, or you know, I should have asked a hard question and put them on the spot. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. If I want to ask an interesting, really hard question that I think is hard myself, I'll take them to one side and have a chat with them. There's no point in putting somebody up, you know, who's already done a talk, and then, you know, pinning them down to the ground and saying, what about this? No, I'll go and have a chat with them and we'll talk it through, and we'll get, you know, do it in a nice, friendly way. But yeah, I mean, ego, that's one of the biggest problems.
I think, you know, that is single-handedly one of the things I deal with the most, which is learning how to stay calm and collected when I know that someone is deliberately trying to put me down to make them look better.
Yep.
I literally have to go, okay, I know what, you know, because in the past I would have absolutely lowered myself to it, and I would have fought and tried to prove and, you know, play them at their own game, and it's so exhausting.
Exactly. I think that hits the nail on the head for me. It's exhausting. It's so much energy wasted on this tit for tat. This I'm better than you. Oh, we all get paid at the end of the day. We've all got a job to do. Can we just get on and do it, please? You know, I don't need to know that your IQ is 10 points higher than mine. I don't care. What I need you to do is deliver this piece of work, and I'm going to deliver my piece of work. And then at the end of the day, we'll all go to the chief engineer and say, here's the solution. And that's what we should be doing. And it's so difficult not to, as I've learned through some of my therapy as well, is respond, don't react. You know, take that breath. Say, okay, I can see what's happening here. I can see what's going on, what you're trying to do, and I am not going to rise to it. And I think, again, that is a maturity thing. Yeah.
Maturity thing, and
It's great being in your 40s, honestly.
I tell you. And also it's a generational thing, because I think getting a bit sort of like profound for a second, I think women have really been suppressed for so many generations. And actually the rise of strong, resilient, knowledgeable, empowered women makes people feel insecure.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, especially when, I mean, I find it a lot when we have a big graduate intake as well. They're also, I think, they feel a competition within themselves between their groups, and so they bring that to their placements sometimes. And it's like, no, I'm not here to be your competition, but it's a young man, desperate to prove as well, and you can't blame them for that. They want to make their mark. They want to, get the good reviews so that they get a good job at the end of it. But I was doing a course once, and there was 3 guys who had graduated Imperial College on one side of the table. There was myself and another chap who was probably about my age. I mean, this is 10 years ago now. And there was another guy who was just starting out on a degree program within Rolls-Royce. So he'd worked for Rolls-Royce and then was starting on a degree program. And we were doing a lot of gas turbine calculations and things like that. And of course, some of these Imperial lads were just all going hell for leather, getting through them as quickly as possible. I finished, aren't I great, kind of thing. And I'm sort of, working through at my pace. And me and this other chap were having a chat about it. And then there's the guy who literally hasn't done his degree yet, didn't really know how to rearrange an equation. So I went and sat with him and showed him how to do it. And the best thing was, one of the Imperial guys, who was actually working for me as a graduate at the time, got up and started to help the other chap as well. I'm like, I know who I want to work with. I know that it's the person that's got up and started to support the other person, not the two who were just having a competition. I know that kind of person is going to be great in a team. I know that kind of person is going to be helpful to new starters and really, share knowledge, rather than, well, I've done my work and I'm all right, kind of thing. I'm like, that's not what I want. I mean, they were brand new. I'm sure that they have, matured over the years as well, and realised, that to work in a team, you have to be, you have to support each other. But it was quite telling to me.
And it also says a lot about the way we educate, because, so much emphasis is on league tables and being top of the class and all of that. And so maybe one of the keys to unlocking diversity, more diversity and inclusion and equality in engineering, is to actually start in the school classroom.
Yeah. I think it's, we also deal with a different set of rules when we're doing engineering. We all love maths. There's a right and a wrong answer. It's great. Yes, tick. Great. Got it right. Brilliant. Feel good. Whew, great. Then we get to, A levels, and we realise that, the answer is an answer, but it's plus or minus some error because of the way I've measured something, or it's like, okay, fine. And then you go and do your degree, and those errors also exist there, and maybe they're a bit more complicated because you're using more complicated equipment and things like that. And then you get to an engineering job where actually there isn't always a right or a wrong answer, because what we deal in is levels of risk. We can't calculate everything. We can't calculate everything to the nth degree. But what we can do is work out whether or not this part will last for 10,000 cycles, 20,000 cycles, 40,000 cycles, or 50,000 cycles. And so, you can't pinpoint. It's not, you can't say it'll last for 24,712. It doesn't exist. That kind of right and wrong doesn't exist. And so you've got to get comfortable with not having a right answer. Sometimes they are there. Sometimes they're, when I'm doing emissions testing, I measure what I need to measure from the pollutants of the engine, and I have a plus or minus because of the instrument that I've used, because of the way that the engine has been operated. But, you know, a lot of the time it's, okay, is this an acceptable risk? Yeah, I think it is, because of the data that we've got, and we can be confident, and we use statistical analysis as well. So it's when you get into that kind of, there is no right or wrong answer, the people who are, you know, having competitions to see who can get all the calculations done as quickly as possible, they need to change their mindset then. Because that doesn't work. Say that again?
It's so different from physics.
Yeah. I mean, in physics as well, you'll be operating. I mean, something like it's all to do because we've got complex machinery. We've got complex pieces of equipment. So something like CERN, you know, you're operating that within tolerances all the time. You know, and we have to manufacture things within tolerances. You can't get everything perfect every time. So, you know, we have to then make a decision as to whether or not it's okay. And, you know, I have done that in my job, where a part has come in and it's not quite right, not a million miles out. Is it okay? Yeah, I've done my analysis. I have checked, you know, the figures, and I can say, yes, that's okay. But there's no right or wrong answer, really. And I think in, you know, some large scale scientific institutions that like CERN, or, you know, the diamond light source and that kind of stuff within the physics world, you're probably looking at similar kind of tolerances on the parts that make up that. And of course, then that will feed back into the data that you receive.
Mm. Well, do you know, Kat, like the first time I met you, it's so awesome speaking with you. Like, I just feel like I could chat with you for hours.
Me too. I feel you're really cool. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, thank you for being such an inspirational person, because not only do you have this absolute like fire. Oh, combustion. Yeah, you've got like a real fire in your belly for what you do.
I do like it. Yeah.
Not intended at all, but honestly, I just really feel your passion for what you do, and your love for making an impact in the industry. But I also do really sense that you've been on a very personal journey with it as well. And I'm so grateful to you for opening up and sharing that with us. But also, thank you for straddling so many different worlds, from like, you know, industry to academia and everything in between, because I think it's such a valuable perspective that you have that really, I don't know, just, I listen to you and I just think this is an industry that really would benefit from diversity, and what's key to that is really believing in oneself and one's capabilities. And I really hear that in everything that you've said about your journey. And it's just been utterly inspiring. So.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And again, you know, your whole series is inspiring to me, because it's getting people out there, it's getting people online, it's getting people recognised for being women in STEM as well. And you know, you it can't be one without the other.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and please do subscribe to this podcast, and maybe even rate and review it if you can. The more ratings and reviews, then the more interest from those trusty algorithms, which could help to increase the reach of this show. And you can watch the video recording of this conversation on YouTube for my new series called ESTEAMd Women. It's all about self-discovery and self-evolution on innovation. So as always, be kind and loving to yourselves, and I wish you all a great week.